Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're talking about Validiums. It's this really cool Ethereum scaling solution that's all about giving you massive speed and super low fees. And how does it do it? By kind of breaking one of the golden rules of blockchain, keeping all the data on-chain.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, why do we even need something like a Validium? What's the problem? Then we'll get into how they actually work, pit them against rollups, and finally, check out where you'd actually use one.
So let's kick things off with what I'm calling Ethereum's data dilemma. Because, to really get why Validiums are so smart, you've got to understand the exact headache they're trying to fix. Look, if you've ever tried to do anything on Ethereum when it's busy, you know the feeling, right? The gas fees just shoot through the roof and your transaction feels like it's stuck in traffic forever. It's a classic problem, and it all boils down to a fundamental design bottleneck.
And that bottleneck has a name. It's called data availability. This is so important. It's basically the golden rule. For a blockchain to be truly secure and decentralized, everyone, and I mean everyone, needs to be able to see all the transaction data. That's how we can all check the work and make sure no one's cheating. It's the whole point of a trustless system.
And right there, that's the dilemma. Ethereum's superpower, the fact that it stores everything on-chain for bulletproof security, is also its kryptonite. When things get crowded, that on-chain space becomes like beachfront property in a booming market. It gets super expensive, super fast, and that's what causes those high fees and slow transactions.
Okay, so if the problem is that on-chain data is expensive real estate, what's the obvious solution? Don't build there. And that's exactly what Validiums do. They're built on this one big, almost rebellious idea. What if we just move the data off-chain?
And this is where things get really interesting, especially when you compare them to something like a rollup. You see, rollups bundle up transactions, but they still post a compressed version of that data back to Ethereum. Validiums? Nope. They go a step further. They move that data somewhere else completely. This is such a cool way to think about it. It's really a different philosophy on security. With a rollup, security is guaranteed because the data is on-chain. Anyone can go look at it and verify it. But with a Validium, security is proven. They use some seriously mind-bending math to generate a cryptographic proof that says, hey, Ethereum, trust me, all this off-chain stuff is legit, without actually showing you the stuff. It's security through pure mathematics.
All right, so the big question is, how on earth can you trust something you can't see? If the data isn't on Ethereum, how do we know it's real? Well, it all comes down to how these things are built. It's a pretty clever setup.
Think of it like a three-layer cake. At the bottom, you've got the Ethereum main chain. That's your solid, secure foundation. The middle layer is the Validium itself. That's the high-speed processing engine where everything happens super fast. And then on top, you have this new thing called a Data Availability Committee, or a DAC. This is basically a group of designated guardians who are in charge of storing all that transaction data off-chain.
Okay, so let's walk through it. You send a transaction, right? It goes to the Validium operator. They take your transaction, bundle it up with thousands of others, and then run it through a cryptographic meat grinder, using crazy stuff like ZK STARKs or SNARKs to produce one tiny little proof. And here's the magic. Only that tiny proof gets posted to Ethereum. The actual bulky data, that gets handed over to the DAC for safekeeping. The efficiency here is just insane.
Now, this whole setup, it's not without its trade-offs. Nothing ever is, right? So let's put Validiums head-to-head with Rollups, their more famous Layer 2 cousins, and figure out what you gain and what you give up.
So, which one's better? It's the question everyone asks. But honestly, it's the wrong question. It's not about better. It's about better for what? It's about picking the right tool for the job.
And this table lays it all out perfectly. Look at the fees and throughput for Validiums, very low and very high. That's because they don't have to pay for that expensive on-chain real estate. But here's the catch, data availability. For rollups, it's guaranteed on-chain. For Validiums, you're trusting that DAC. So what does that mean? Well, rollups are awesome for general DeFi, where that on-chain guarantee is king. Validiums, they are built for speed demons, high-volume trading, gaming, things that need insane performance.
Okay, theory is great, but where is this stuff actually being used? Where do Validiums really shine? Let's get into some of the killer applications. First up, high-speed trading. We're talking about decentralized exchanges that need to process thousands of orders a second. Trying to do that directly on Ethereum? Forget about it. It would be ridiculously, impossibly expensive. Validiums make it possible. Next up, gaming.
This is a huge one. With a Validium, you can trade your in-game items, your NFTs, whatever, instantly and for practically zero cost. No more waiting for a block confirmation while you're in the middle of a game. It just works, which is exactly what gamers need.
And what about micropayments? Think about tipping a creator a few cents, or paying for an article per view, or a streaming service by the second. On mainnet Ethereum, the gas fee would be more than the payment itself. Validiums make these tiny transactions not just possible, but actually economical.
And the story's not over. This technology is still evolving. People are working on making the DAX more decentralized, so you're not just trusting a small group. They're exploring hybrid models that mix and match the best of Rollups and Validiums. This is all about pushing the envelope and opening the door for even more high-performance applications. Which brings us back to the central question, the big trade-off. Validiums give you mind-blowing speed and privacy, but to get it, you have to introduce this new trust assumption with a data availability committee. So, is that a fair price to pay? Is trusting that committee worth it for ultimate performance? That's really the multi-billion-dollar question that the whole ecosystem is trying to answer.